hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Been a little bit since we've seen you. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's been a couple days. Welcome to the Cluster Puck podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me, soon. She was here, and her camera started wigging out. It's Brit. I'll ask how she's doing once she pops in. I promise she's being right back. We were just talking right before we went live, so she'll be right back. But before we get into today's stuff and asking how Brit's going, don't forget to follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck podcast go live. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I think Twitch we also had on there. We got all kinds of stuff. And then if you want to follow us individually, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook. And you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Avs on Instagram, Twitter, and the new Threads app. Been doing a little searching around that Threads app. Pretty interesting stuff. So should be fun to see kind of have Twitter and Threads end up having a fun little war to see who gets the most followings and likes, and we'll see what happens. But regardless, we're on there too. So before we get into some more stuff, we just want to put a couple little house cleaning items from last week. So last week we talked about if you were the coach, what would your lines be, right? Given the current Avalanche squad that you have, what would your lines be? Let's see. Here she's popping in.
Hello.
You there, Britt?
Yes, I figured out it's my...
Maybe she'll show up in just a second. So we were discussing what our lines would be, and I threw out something on, I think it was Twitter, Instagram, Threads as well. As far as if you were the coach, what would your lines be? You know, we got a slew of responses. Go. Huh. Yeah, we're experiencing technical difficulties all over the place. So, okay, so I think I'm back. Internet connection says it's fine, but we'll see how it goes. So we're talking about lines. I got a lot of people that responded back, and we're gonna have to see how many people. Oh, there she is. We'll have to see. We'll give our lines. We'll see about the schedule, which we talked about. We have a deep dive as far as the player spotlight. Britt has a player spotlight on, I believe it's Jonathan Drouin.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then we'll also get into a little bit more on Hockey 101. We're going to talk about major penalties. So first things first, let's now talk, I guess, schedule. Let's go after that first. So if you haven't seen already, I'm trying to get this pulled up.
And that's, join on my phone. So I don't have my notes on my notepad from my phone, so I'm riding with you here, but we generally think the same, so.
Yeah. If I could pull that up, that'd be awesome.
Let me see if
regular season. You know what? This will be close enough. So this is on ESPN. So let me go ahead and share the screen here so you guys can take a look. See? Okay. So here is the schedule. Let's see, get it on there, and then.
And I think that if you look on, if somebody is looking on the schedule, the ESPN schedule is a good one because the games that are on ESPN and TNT are generally going to be those kind of special games or the games that they anticipate they'll get the most viewership for. So if you're ever wondering what games are like the best to watch or the must watch, generally I think those ESPN and TNT games are going to be the good ones, which we seem to stop all of those games last year. Every time we were on national TV, we played awful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a look into this now. So first ever game we're going into here. 2023-2024 season is going to be at Los Angeles. In fact, our first home game does not even occur until the fourth game, which is going to be, we guessed it, I'm pretty sure Britt and I both had it, Chicago. That's going to be our first home game. So we get to host Connor Bedard and his lovely new team with Taylor Hall and all those guys now.
I look forward with it. I mean, it's it just sucks. I don't want to go out there and lose to them in that home opener and have on a show, and that'll be the talking point, because the Avs are never the talking point, even in their own games, it seems, unless they're so it'll be interesting to see where that starts that narrative. I wonder how Chicago has before that.
Let's take a look. I bet we could. I know they begin the season at Pittsburgh. So just looking quickly at Chicago. Yeah, so they have an even worse schedule these first 5 games here. At Pittsburgh, at Boston, at Montreal, at Toronto, at Colorado.
Oh my God. Wow. They're like, here, Connor Bedard, we're going to have you go against, what do we got?
We're going to have you play every good team known to man.
Let's see how you.
Wow, that is a tough first set of games for Chicago, and we are one of them. That's going to be fun. So a couple of games. Let me get back to the tab here. A couple games worth noting. Kind of like with what you said, Britt. Anything that's on a nationally televised broadcast, that's going to be. So, for example, the season opener at Los Angeles, that's going to be big, and that's the only one they've said so far. I know we're going to have more, but that's the only one we have so far. But I'm betting, if you go to, for example, like this at Vegas game, that's bound to be nationally televised. Tampa game, that's sure to be televised. Probably a couple of Bostons in there. Yeah, and like you got one at Boston.
Also, to see if we come back for our revenge. It'll be really interesting. I mean, the Kraken have done not a lot. They lost Morgan Geekie, but it'll be really interesting. It would be so nice to go out there and whomp them and just prove that last year was a fluke. That's going to be one of those big tone setters, I think. And same with the game, the home opener. Well, not home opener, the season opener against LA. That could be Western Conference Finals stuff. I mean, LA is I think they're still looking to completely sort out their goalie stuff, but we could be looking at the future of competition in the West. So we'll see. But they're for real this year, even more so than last year.
Yeah. So that's actually, speaking of, funnily enough, one of the games that I actually kind of had right on my watch radar ends up falling on my birthday, by the way. So it's November 9th versus Seattle, right? Because Seattle's a new team. Seattle has changed their identity from year 1 to year 2. I'm interested. The series is still fairly early in the season. Now, obviously, I know they play each other, third game in, but that's at Seattle. I want to see how they handle the Kraken at home, because that was a big problem that we had against them in that first round playoff. Is the home ice advantage just didn't exist, right? Yeah. So I want to know on that November 9th game how they're.
Did we lose him? And he took the schedule with him. Yeah, I'll just, till he comes back, but we can kind of elaborate on that game. I think that with that November 9th game too, Seattle, it'll be interesting to see kind of how they evolve. It's their polar opposite of Vegas. They've gone a totally different direction. They've developed their teams in completely different ways as humanly possible. So it'll be interesting to see how Seattle, if that ends up being long-term positive for them. Hello. So I was just saying, it'll be interesting because Seattle is so different from Vegas, and Vegas is kind of our mortal enemies. But it'll be interesting to see year after year how they come out and how it evolves, whether they get worse or better. But I think that the Kraken could be one of those relentlessly mediocre teams. And what'll be nice is by that time, we'll kind of have our footing. Lines will be established. I feel like they're going to do some changing up on their team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have to do something kind of, because they need star power. They were pretty much the opposite of us. We had star power, no depth. They had depth, no star power. So we might have teams that need a month to get our feet under us. And you might have two really, really powerful teams by that point. I don't think that first game will be a great gauge of what we can anticipate for the rest of the season. But by November, I think that we can plan to see the real deal, or at least somewhere near it. Not sure if I'm freezing or if you're freezing.
I don't know. My poor internet is just doing as best it can, but it's just not doing very good. So one game that I had to keep an eye on is on January 18th. So I'll quickly highlight into that one. That one is going to be at Boston. Now, remember from last season, obviously we were hurting and stuff like that, but that was one of the games that it was just absolutely atrocious. Like that was not a very well played game, and you embarrassed yourself at TD Garden. And I really want to see. I think we got a goal, but like in trash time or something like that. It was bad. So if
the Brew was supposed to be a big game, and it went horrific. And we ended up playing at the peak of every injury stint, the absolute peak of our problem. Always played Boston. It was sickening.
Yeah. So that was one that I'm like, that if there's a redemption game to be had, it is going to be on that day, the 18th of January, in Boston, because that's, again, you have to realize Boston, even though they were knocked off by the Panthers in that first round, by everyone's surprise, except for Allie. Apparently she had called it, and she'll tell you about it to this day that she was right. They are still a very, very good team, right? So
I think that they're going to be a shell of what they were, and I think that they know that it's coming also. So I'm curious to see. I could see them go out and royally suck next year.
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know.
Yep, and she'll say she called it, and she did. She got it exactly right. So again, that's a game that I want to keep on the radar. There's another one, just one more that I'll put together. Let me actually make sure I got the right date. It is March 28th, and that one is going to be at home against the Rangers. Now, this is obviously a conflict of interest in my family, of course, my wife being a Rangers fan. But this is where it comes down to, you're at the very end of the season. Both of these teams, I think by that point, are playing for, with luck, first place in their respective divisions.
And they missed it last year. They should be this year, because that was a huge failure for them last year. They threw it all out there. They're going to want it anybody.
It's true, because if you remember last year, we went to New York. This is after we got Georgiev. We go there. I think the game was 1-1 or something, but then it went to shootouts, right? We go for the sweep. I guess we stopped all three shots. Georgiev played fantastic. That's where I, got all my confidence in him. Everything was great. Yeah. Well, fast forward in that season to when New York comes to Colorado, same thing happens. We go to a shutout, and this time they can't get it done. It's a battle of goalies, right? And that's kind of where I like to see Georgiev play his best. And that's and right there toward the end of the season, I think, is one of the best places to put it. It polishes him off. It keeps him active and going for the playoffs, which I'm assuming we're going to make. Right. But it keeps him active, and I think it's going to be a very, very well put together display of goalies between Georgiev and Shesterkin.
We saw him that for a long time, and it was definitely a coming out party for Georgiev when he last shootout save. That was the most we saw out of him. I mean, you could tell he could have just exploded into 1,000 pieces and ridden that high forever. It was nice to see that from him, that hunger, and he was, I don't know, you don't see Russian men get to a point where they look like they're going to squeal, but that was it.
Yeah, it was. And well, it also reminds me of when the Avalanche played in Washington last year and they got that, I think, 4-0 shutout, if I'm not mistaken. Again, that was another game for Georgiev where he got I think that was his first shutout of the season. And it was one of those confidence builder ones. So I'm throughout this whole season, and obviously we'll talk about this in episodes to come, but I am very much looking forward to the goalie response, because as of now, our two are still Georgiev and Francouz. I had no indication of getting rid of Francouz, so I'm assuming we're still with that 1-2 punch. Where
year for him, right? We just trade off every other year.
That's exactly right. So maybe, who's to say? But I think as far as our goaltending, we're in a pretty sound position. But I want to see those master classes, because each goalie had one of those this last season. Even oh my gosh, I just forgot his name, Johansson. He even had that masterclass save against Ottawa, right? So
Tampa Bay Lightning legend, Jonas Johansson.
Tampa Bay Lightning legend, yeah, that's right. So I think if we can just put on a couple of those showpieces for at least the goalies, and I'd love to obviously see everybody else pepper that throughout the season, I think we are in great shape to go after first place in the Central Division again.
Especially to see what Georgie's going to do with a healthy team in front of him. Pray to God he has a healthy team in front of him. So it'll be interesting to see if he can recollect his game. It's different. It doesn't necessarily get easier. That's where you see those goalies pop off, is when they're playing super hot because they play for a sucky team and they get hot and stay hot because they're facing 50 shots and they just ride that. But it'll be nice to see him find some stability in his game. And I think that my one game that I really have picked out, because the big trade, that was a kind of one of the later ones. We see Sir Matt Duchene on November 18th at Dallas, and it'll be interesting to see Ottinger's kind of in that he is kind of in a prove it. He's had some incredible periods of play, but he really kind of lost it there a couple times in the playoffs. And I don't think anybody anticipated that he was even capable of taking 20 seconds off in a game, because he's elite. But this is kind of where he can solidify himself as basically a mainstay in that elite bracket. So it'll be interesting to see if we can score on him. It'll also be interesting to see if Shane will continue his always scoring a goal against the Avalanche, even if he hasn't scored a goal in 5 years. It's crazy. But I really look forward to. I think Dallas is gonna continue to be the pain in our back. Always been, but even more so this year. I mean, did they lose anything that concerns you?
They being Dallas, or they being the Avalanche?
Dallas.
Not really. I think besides Domi, but he seemed to be just perfectly replaceable to oh my gosh, what am I saying here? Duchene. I think Duchene can perfectly replace Domi without any issues. So I don't really think they gained any traction, but they didn't lose any either. And Dallas was the team that we said throughout the entire season, oh, they're riding high, but eventually.
He's got
a bit rude over here. She kicked me out.
I was trying to remove myself because my computer is finally functioning again with the mouse issue, so I can be on my computer.
Anyway, so we were talking about Dallas. So we talked about all last season how they were riding high and eventually they'll dip and whatnot. They never did. We were wrong, right?
I really thought, I am honestly shocked that they didn't make it farther. I really am. Especially when you consider Robertson's getting into that. He's getting out of that amateur hour, not so sure of himself. He's he knows who he is and he knows where he stands, and he's been in the playoffs now. He's done it. He's seen it. So I really think he's going to come out with a new level of confidence that's kind of terrifying, because that guy can score goals like crazy.
Yep. What other games on the schedule, Britt, that you were able to come up with? We're gonna keep the screen just to try to keep our internet stable. We're going to try to minimize how many screens we're showing. So we're going to ask that you pull out your Avalanche schedules. It's on ESPN. You can find it on their website, NHL.com, Twitter, wherever, but pull out your schedules. Were there any, the Boston one?
No, I said we at home, or I thought I lost you. It's just weird because the more I look at the schedule seems so different in a way of looking at it than I ever have, because the Blues are what? What are the Blues?
That's a good question.
I just don't I don't know if you're freezing or if I am.
No, I said that's a good question. What are the Blues? What an interesting question, because according to my brother, who again is a Blues fan, for those of you who do not know, he is not expecting very much from them this year, considering that their offseason moves weren't very much. And really, they haven't progressed other than that Kevin Hayes trade, but they didn't land Ryan O'Reilly. They didn't land, anybody else. So
I can't believe they didn't spend money to get Ryan O'Reilly back. It's not like he expected to go to a cup contender, because he's certainly not doing it where he went. So it's just the Panthers are weird. I don't know what they're doing either.
Yep. So here's a question, actually. So this one's from Allie, and she says, which team do you guys think will cause some problems for the Avs, even though they don't look like they should? The easy answer, at least in my eyes, is Arizona. For some reason, even though on paper we should mop the floor with them every time, or whatever it is, the over-under you have, or the point spread, we never seem to be able to move past that hump of beating them by a large margin, or for whatever reason.
Even when we signed their goalie, that was
that's right.
The reason that they won. We take the goalie and they still, it's awful. It's almost kind of a joke at this point.
Exactly. So,
and they declared they're not rebuilding anymore. It's time to go up. They're not tearing down anymore. Excuse me. They are officially rebuilding. They haven't traded Schmaltz yet. Are they going to just keep him?
They just might, honestly, because
Clayton Keller's
free
still
agency. Keller's still there. They have been eyeballing. This is allegedly. They have been eyeballing Matt Dumba since day one. Which I'm like,
he's much of a meter mover. Because I just don't, and maybe I'm underestimating.
For a team like Arizona, I think it actually is. But any other team that wasn't bottom 8, I don't really think it moves the needle all that much. So,
yeah, because people are talking about him to Toronto also, and it's like, didn't you guys get enough like cavemen already? Like, I just don't. And it's just weird because also, it's so hard to know. Our half of the country, what is Calgary? What are the Wild? It's going to be a very, very interesting beginning of the season, because the Panthers, the Wild, Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg, they're all just, we have no idea,
Who knows? Yep.
If they might put it together and they might not. It's totally up in the air right now.
Yeah. And one thing, jumping back quickly to that Arizona team, is they re-signed Bjugstad, who was a very, very important part, which made me happy, right? It was a very, very important part of their team before he got traded to Edmonton for that half season. And, he's the Jack Johnson, apparently, of the Coyotes organization, where they'll deal him out and bring him right back,
Yeah.
But for now, I mean, you look at that line, and with the signing of Jason Zucker, for example, that was a really big signing. And who was the other one that they brought? Kerfoot, I think they got. Yep. Yeah. And then, who else did they bring in? I can't find it. Sean Dursey.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, names but they're not like huge impact all-star names or whatever, but they are now a team that you kind of like with what you said. They they're not going to go right after everyone and just try to buy their way to the top. They're going to still build, but they are now out of that stage where they have started to bring in these pieces. So that's why, for me, Arizona is going to be that team to look out for. And even as Avatar says, they had a lot of teams numbers last season, right? They weren't, I don't think they finished bottom 5. I think
remember they were the ones
or
who
like that.
Didn't they break Boston's home streak of relentless wins?
They did.
Like,
because they had like a streak of 10 of their own or something on the road. Like it was crazy.
Yep.
So they're going to be on the
they've got that
upswing.
advantage. They're used to playing in that tiny, awkward, weird little rink, and that's an advantage that people don't talk about. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, my wife and I are going to do everything we can to see if we can get to a Coyotes game in that arena just for the atmosphere.
Yes,
the intimacy and the compactness of 5,000 people. That's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I really want to get down. My husband finished. He is officially employed with the airlines here shortly, so I can hopefully just jet set.
Just
that, having absolutely 100% certainty that that's not how my life works because it's too busy. But I like the idea of getting on a plane and going to a game and just coming right back home. So I want to go. We got 3 years unless they reload.
There you go. Okay, so that was my kind of dark horse team. Was there any other team that you think could maybe jump out and catch the Avalanche by surprise?
The Kings are the one, and I don't think that's a surprise at this point. Allie mentioned the Penguins, and that's what I don't think that you count the Penguins out till Crosby's gone. I really don't. I think that he shapes people and shapes the game and directs people well. And I mean, of course, the Knights, but I just really think the Kings are what scares me in general this year. And I don't think that enough people talk about them. If they figure out their goalie situation, they're going to be terrifying. And I really do think that. So we'll see. Otherwise, I don't think the Wild are going to be an issue. I don't think the Ducks are going to be an issue. Our main teams that we play, I don't think the Jets will be an issue. I really think that New Jersey is a scary one, and I think that LA is a scary one, especially New Jersey's style. It'll be interesting to see how we match up with them. I think they've done nothing but hone up on their team. I don't think they've gone backwards in any way. So,
yeah, I totally agree with you because with the re-signing of Timo Meier, for example, with New Jersey, that one was one that I was kind of bummed about because I was hoping he'd go back to San Jose, but you can't control the league sitting on a couch, so whatever.
It will be crazy with the Red Wings, though. I mean,
that was going to be the next one I was actually going to bring up, believe it or not, was the Red Wings. They are all of a sudden they're going after it, man.
It may be good. Lots of upper middle depth ish, somewhere between depth and all stars. Just like a team full of JT Confers, basically. So it'll be
it sure seems like it. Yeah. And then obviously the recent, I think was it yesterday where Alex DeBrincat was officially traded to Detroit, which is where he's from. Right?
I can never remember that guy's name without looking at it. Vladin, is that his name? The Russian. He signed with the Sharks.
Oh, with Kubalik. Let's see. Well, I know Kubalik was the trade.
No, the one that the Red Wings just released. The guy who. Vladar.
Oh my gosh!
I always want to say Vladar, and I know that.
Allie and I were just talking about him in the car. Now I can't think of his name.
Yeah, but
I know who you're talking about.
Not that hurts the Red Wings in any fashion. That's a very odd. Was he like a 6th overall? That's a really weird relationship. The guy clearly thinks very highly of himself and has a lot of confidence. I don't know if you heard his quote from before where he, in his draft class, he basically said, any team that doesn't pick me, I'm going to score. Yes, Adina. I'm going to fill their nets with pucks. And then he goes on to absolutely poop the bed, and he not been very good, and he agreed to terminate his contract, basically forfeited $5 million over the next couple of years to give himself a chance to earn a real contract,
kind of redeem himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's been, and he might just go on to be an AHL player now, only getting paid like $1 million in the AHL instead of, I don't know, we'll see. It's interesting. I like it. It's cocky, but I kind of like it. We'll see.
Yeah, it should be fun. And with any luck, maybe this reignites the old Detroit and Colorado rivalry, even though they're not in the same conference anymore. It would be kind of fun to just kind of have those ghosts pop up every now and again to keep the blood pumping. But anyway, so for everybody else, the schedule, you can check it out yourself. One more thing that I do want to point out is I think we counted 8 back-to-backs this season. I think it was 8, which is like half as many back-to-backs as there was last year.
And
it seemed
less
like
of them on the road, wasn't it? I think it's significantly less.
Yeah, and I think if there were, they were either both home and
right, because we had those split back-to-backs. That's absolutely
yeah. I think there's only a couple of those this year. Like last year, it felt like, especially on that last 2 months, it was nothing but back-to-backs, and a lot of them just being a home and an away or vice versa.
Yeah, especially when you're
and it was so annoying because it's like that schedule doesn't do you any favors down that stretch. So not as many back-to-backs, I don't believe, which is nice. Should give people a little bit of a break. Okay, so let's move on now to the player spotlight. So this one is going to be pretty fun. So Brit, I know you are very excited for this, and we went last year, and I completely skipped over this as we were talking about new players, and for some reason I don't know why.
Refused to acknowledge.
I just apparently didn't even register him in my mind. So go ahead and.
So I had mostly anticipated like looking for fun stories about them for their little ones, but I just Jonathan Drouin is like a totally different case coming to this team, and you'll hear people kind of talk about him and his mental health, and there's a lot of discussion about, and this will come up when we discuss our lines also, how much will he be babied? Will he be under Mac's wing? Will we try to push him out of his comfort zone? Jonathan Drouin is, I just like, the more I read, the more interesting it got. So he is young. He's Mac's age. He was in Mac's draft class. He was the 3rd overall draft pick with McKinnon. And obviously McKinnon has gone on to have a lot of success, a lot more success. So you'll continually hear about the tie between McKinnon and Drouin. Drouin and McKinnon played together in Halifax for the Mooseheads. And they ended up, and that's in the QMJHL championship. They won with a team that wasn't supposed to win. And so this was like 10 years ago. They basically are like legendary in that league and in Canada. That duo would, I mean, any basic Canadian that enjoys hockey will know of that duo. I'm trying to remember if it was their first ever, the franchise's first ever QMJHL and Memorial Cup championships a year later. So yeah, they made magic. I mean, they truly were just, and I don't know, it's hard to know if that's going to guarantee to carry through. But they were also really, really good friends. It's been discussed that McKinnon had a lot of say in bringing him to the team. So you're going to continually hear these themes. It's going to be a Mac and a Drouin thing. I don't know if they're going to want to cater to that, or if they're going to want to eventually split that up and try to get him standing on his own 2 feet. He's not a child. The thing with Drouin is he is an incredible hockey player. He's got all the tools. Somebody just took the toolbox and threw it against the wall, because his primary issues have revolved mostly around mental health. I was reading, there was times that he said he would lay in bed and not sleep for 3 days over stressing about upcoming games. He suffers from panic attacks. He has a lot of sleep issues, and that's just, it's hard to even imagine having like insomnia issues as an NHL player, because even with the most healthy functioning schedule in the world, they're still going to be tired and stressed. And if you're not sleeping, I don't even know how you continue. And that would explain why he's struggled a lot. I'm trying to get up his thing. His numbers have been not good. He's had a career that's definitely disappointing for him. So he's only played 33 career playoff games. So compare that to McKinnon. McKinnon has played how many? I mean, he's been in the NHL 10 years. And Drouin had the same, nearly the same expectations. They came in like basically like bread and butter. And he spent some time with the Lightning. Montreal was his last team. And one of the other recurring themes that you'll hear is that in Montreal, what they tend to do is they tend to destroy people's mental health. And so the hope is that with a calmer media, he can get that together. I've read a lot of stuff about him being excited to be here. He seems like a kind, really humble guy. I'm trying to see if I can find the video to see if I can play it. I found some goofy Mac Drouin videos. They do have some of the goofy YouTube videos. So if I can't find it, we will have to post it because I don't know. Have you seen the vintage Mac YouTube, like messing around with
commercials and stuff?
No, like in their parents' driveway as teenagers.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
Oh my God. So funny. But they're just, and I mean, they just look like absolute babies, just little children. But yeah, I mean, he's 5'11", 201 pounds. He plays left wing generally. He plays, I think he's played some center, but I don't know if that has been anytime recent. But it makes it interesting for our line discussion. But he also played, and I'll bring it up because I love it. He played in the Quebec International Pee Wee Tournament with the Mooseheads. And then I was trying to see, most of his career was with the Lightning. And he did have the game-winning goal when they beat the Devils, clinching the home ice for the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's the one that they got swept in, right? And I think they pretty much got rid of him right before they went on to tear it up. So that's got to be kind of a sad career trajectory to go from Tampa to Montreal, who Montreal had also just lost the Stanley Cup playoffs, and one that they definitely did not deserve to make it to the final round. But basically he's just been leaving where is good and going where it got bad, and he's had a very tremulous career as far as luck and mental health. He's got anxiety, insomnia. He had to take a leave of absence. He missed the last 12 games of the regular season and the entirety of the Canadiens' Stanley Cup run when they did go to the Cup. So he's due for some good vibes. And I really think that we're going to give that to him. He does have a girlfriend. They just had a baby not too long ago, and it's really, really, really cute. I'm just really excited about him. And I think that it'll be interesting to watch him grow. I think everybody should just kind of keep an eye on him, look for interviews from him, because I think that we're really going to see him take off and hopefully develop into a new person.
Yeah, and I totally agree because, you look at Jonathan Drouin and you see his statistics, especially when he was with Halifax, right? And he had 2 100-point games with the Mooseheads, and that was with McKinnon and whatnot before they were both drafted, right? Just the 2 seasons before they were drafted. And you look at the stats now that Montreal has, and you go to the last, let's say, 4 seasons with them: 2 goals, 6 goals, 2 goals, 7 goals, whereas before he was 21 goals, 18 goals, stuff like that. So I completely agree. It's to me, it's kind of a low risk, high reward type deal because you're paying less than $1 million for him, and I think he realizes that he wants a fresh start, but he can't command as much money because obviously that's a lot of why you're getting paid is statistic based, right? And for how many goals you scored or points you've had or whatever. Yeah.
And it's all there. All of the tools are there. He's just got to get it together. And I really truly think that it all comes down to he went to the 2015 All-Stars competition. He won fastest skater. So, and I don't know, maybe that was when McDavid miss it when he had a broken wrist? Maybe was that around that time? Because this was 2015.
That might have been.
So, but
maybe
that's really. I mean, that's a huge thing to win, and that's when people actually gave more of a shit about those competitions because people actually tried a little bit harder. I think now I just don't think it means anything, the individual competitions. But he also won CHL Player of the Year, 2013. I mean, he's a very accomplished player, and he's not old. It's not like he's trying to bring back something that's physically lost. It's just mentally putting it together. it could be magic. It could be truly, truly magic, or it could be catastrophic. And, fortunately, it's only $1 million, and hopefully, he can find his place in life because, he deserves that. And he sounds like somebody who's worked really, really hard. And I'm just thankful that the Avs are the team to give that to him. When I was doing my research today, I found articles from as long as 7 years ago of people asking to bring him to the Avs. So it is a long time. So it's finally time to see if the Avs can make Drouin who he's supposed to be.
I totally agree. And I guess that kind of segues us right into our next segment about the lines, because with Drouin, that's kind of going to be the big question, is what to do with him, because everyone else you would kind of suspect them to be put in their place. So that being said, and we got a few responses from some followers and whatnot as far as their lines. Most of them tended to be the same, but I think you and I give our lines here. So first line, let's start with let's start with the goaltending first, because that one should be easy to get out of the way. I'm going to have Georgiev as my 1A and Francouz as my 1B. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Absolutely. And I really think that it is imperative, if we are going to make a deep run, that we have got to see Frankie play 20 to 25 games. We need to be a 2-1 at least. As much as I have faith in Georgie that he can do it, we don't need the gas running out in the middle of the second round. We don't need injuries. We need more out of them.
It seemed like Francouz, his injuries actually occurred off ice. Or I guess I should say not during an actual game, maybe like a practice.
Has he ever gotten hurt in a game? It seems to always come out at the most insane times. It's like a game's over and everything's done and settled, and then somebody's like, "Oh yeah, Frankie's hurt," and it's like, what? So and plus we're gonna need Frankie in the playoffs too. He played the entire Edmonton series. We need him healthy, and that's what
and most of that Nashville series. Remember.
Yeah, you gotta have 2 competent goalies. Look at Vegas; they signed 97 goalies and used maybe 4 of them.
And they have all 4 of those goalies' names etched on the cup, first time ever.
I know. And did you see the one guy that didn't get his name on the cup because he didn't play enough games?
Nolan Patrick, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he played a single game with them. That was the thing. So it's like it's sad, but
like the trainer, it's the trainer's name on it.
Just ridiculous. Okay, so let's do first line forwards and then first line defense. So we'll go first, or do we want to do forwards and then defense?
Totally up to you. I think defense is pretty easy to square away for the most part.
Let's do defense first then. So first defensive pairing, I have obviously Cale Makar as your right defenseman and Jonathan Toews as your left defenseman. I will fight you if you disagree, Brit.
It's hard to justify literally anything, but it is also interesting to consider how well Bo played next to Makar.
Oh, yeah.
So
because that's going to be the thing. If Toews ends up getting dealt by some surprise this season or next season.
I heard today that there's like a good chance of an extension coming. So I just
I would love that. I would love that. And
probably the one way that I'll be okay losing Sam Girard.
That's right. And Avatar just said, I know you guys talked about this last show, but I'm happy that the Avs re-signed Byram. Me too.
Like a physical weight off my back when we signed him, because
there was that big
little dude, and there's a chance that he could have bet on himself and gone somewhere else. And that's really scary. I don't want to play against him.
No, I wouldn't either, because here's the thing. He's got Norris Trophy candidate written all over him. Mm-hmm. You know, if he develops into something that he could overtake Toews' position as that first defensive pairing, you're in for a treat. And that's the thing, is he is outrageously creative and talented, right? The only thing, and this was only from a couple seasons ago, was that whole concussion problem where but he seems to be no worse for wear, and I'm at a point where if he does get hit, I don't wince anymore.
No, it doesn't.
So that's great.
And he's got balls. He's got confidence. He is clearly very. I don't know if you've ever heard his chirp, his oh my god, 9 to 5 chirp or something. I can't remember what it is. So good, but you can tell that he infuriates the other team. He is a very good crap talker. So curious though, with our anticipated second line, I think you and I are in agreement for our second line. should we have Bo or Manson? That second defensive line is very injury prone. Would you anticipate splitting Taze and Makar? Should either one of those guys struggle or be out, would you look at moving Bo or Josh up and Taze down and kind of level out both lines, or do we want to go balls to the wall with one and then a week or two? And
I would say if it does come to injuries, to split the lines.
Which it doesn't even sound like Manson is guaranteed to be back at the beginning of the season.
Oh, that's just fantastic. Oh, that par for the course for the Colorado Avalanche, isn't it? Jeez. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if it were me, because your best three defensemen, in my opinion, are Makar, Taves, Byram. Mm-hmm. Maybe you just shift them all onto that line, so at least you're more evenly spread in the defense if injuries do occur. And speaking of, that is my second line D pairing is actually Girard and Byram.
Really? Wow.
So I have Sammy Girard. The only reason why is because I feel like they can help each other. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because Girard, we know him. He can skate. He can puck handle really well. The only thing is he doesn't. He can hold his own. He hits, right? Like we know that. But not to the capacity that Byram can carry his own weight, right? So if it was kind of like the yin to his yang, I feel like that's more of a complimentary than putting someone like Josh Manson on the second line.
Especially if it's going to be a tender start to the season.
Exactly, right? So that's why I have my second line pairing as Girard and Byram. So
yeah, we just had Girard and Manson swapped. I guess, and neither one of them would bother me. My only thing is I kind of worry about the speed with Manson and Jack Johnson. But I also don't know that Jack Johnson is going to be our solidified.
Could be Brad Hunt, could be Curtis McDermott.
Right. Or it sounds like a lot of the guys at the development camp, there's some guys that are standing out a little bit. I was listening to AJ talk earlier, though, and he said speed is definitely not the impressive thing about this camp. So apparently we are honing in a little bit on the toughness more than the speed. I suppose if they can't get past you, then it doesn't matter if they're fast. But I still think we might have a little defensive move coming, not an out of the park.
I think so, too. I agree.
And I just, I really hope that Manson can stay healthy because when he's good, he's so good. And
when we picked him up, he was fantastic.
Hurt so bad. And then to find out he was almost a relief. But he is a very injury-prone person, which I suppose happens when you play like an absolute maniac.
And you go toe-to-toe with Jamie Benn or Milan Lucic or whoever, you know.
I don't think that anything scares that guy.
No. Nothing does. So by that understanding, then you actually have Byram and Manson as a second pairing. And it's a nice contrast. It really is.
And the thing is I'm not, and I don't think Bednar is either. I'm not afraid of just mixing those up freely. And the blender, I don't think that, depending on when you've got the old guy Jack, and then a lot of injury prone guys, like as much as I love our guys, Makar gets hurt, Josh Manson gets hurt, Girard. I mean, so it might be a constant rotation, which fortunately they're pretty used to. And for the most part, I mean, our D is intact from our Stanley Cup crew. So I think that they're fine with mixing that up. I don't think that that's a huge struggle for them as much as it might be at the forward position.
I agree. I think so. So that being said, just cleaning up, my third line defensive pairing was Jack Johnson and Josh Manson, and I guess yours would be Jack Johnson, and Sammy Girard. I think you are correct, though. That end of the day, I think it could be that those bottom four could be just intertwined, or honestly, all six.
And that's what, I was just kind of more thinking Girard to compensate for maybe Jack Johnson's lack of speed, but also Jack Johnson is a very safe player and really puts himself in a position to not have to catch up most of the time. He's a conservative defenseman that doesn't get caught like EJ type stuff. Watching EJ with Girard was pretty painful because Girard drops in to go for some offense and there's no coming back for it from EJ. But I think that Jack Johnson is a lot safer in those kind of situations than he is. So
I would agree. Okay, let's move on to the forwards now. Let's go the first line. Let's hear yours first. I'm interested to see what you have.
It's like it was like impossible for me to actually, because I think it's going to be an ever changing. I think that we're going to mix it up until we find what hits and then roll with it until it's not. And basically I went with Joanne left wing, Nathan McKinnon center, and I had Mikko on right wing, just because I think that Mikko and Mac, I really think that Nichushkin and Rantanen could easily be interchangeable. But when you consider you've got this long history of Dran and Mac are magic, and then Mikko and Mac are magic, and it's like, so if we can put all three of those guys together and just get them rolling at the beginning of the year and have them hot and get some momentum, maybe we can utilize them to fire up other lines down the road. But it's not like our other lines are really lacking. So I think that that's going to be a wicked line if they can find their groove.
Yes.
Which the way Rantanen played last year, it's not. He shouldn't have a downfall this year.
No.
It could be disgusting what those three could do together if Duran can find his way.
I agree. And that's exactly what I have actually for the first line. There's a lot of people thinking that Druin should maybe be that second line because that's maybe where production he would fall, which I would agree with. However, team chemistry is a big thing in the Colorado Avalanche organization, right? So I would agree with you completely where I would put Druin on that first line left wing with McKinnon on the center and Rantanen on the right wing. It's kind of like that three-headed monster because they had chemistry. That's the reason Landeskog, Rantanen, and McKinnon, they are called the three-headed monster because they had that chemistry that just gelled perfectly. So if Druin could, we know he works well with McKinnon. We know via Halifax that they can do that. If he's able to get that just going on a system with Mikko, that is going to be the production line to look forward to. So I would absolutely agree.
And it is interesting if Gabe comes back. Does Druin go all the way down to third? Do you think?
I would say make Gabe take it easy if he does ever come back. Put him on the third, even the fourth line, where he could at least have some kind of a footing there, be the best one on the ice. Exactly, but don't just immediately throw him onto high minutes and something like that. But it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, second line. Well, what do you have for second line?
So I've got Lecky, Johansson, and Nuke. I don't know if we plan on adding because it keeps getting curiouser and curiouser with where, like, even Johansson might slot. I mean, some people think that Colton is above Johansson. I'm not sure. This is where it kind of confused me too. I think that Lehkonen can play with most people. I think that he's just kind of a good view of the ice. I don't think that Nuke can play with most people. I think that Lecky is a good winger to have on the ice with him. And like we said, Johansson comes in touting playmaking abilities. He's there setting people up. So that could be really good for those two guys. And you got to wonder if you might benefit more from having Duran next to him, but also having two brand new Avs players with Nuke, considering Nuke hasn't been around in a while and everything is off. I don't know if that's the way to start the season, but I don't think it would hurt much moving Lecky back up and swapping Duran and Lecky down the road, where Duran could maybe benefit from some of that playmaking from Johansson also, if he does prove to bring that trait with him. So those are, I'm not set on the wings, which I don't know if anyone is. But what's your lines or line?
So I am in agreeance with you on that second line to start the season. I would put Lehkonen on the left wing. I would have Johansson on the center, and I would have Nichushkin on the right wing. And kind of with what you were saying, it's a difference of body build for me because Lehkonen, he's nimble, but he's smaller, right? But he gets in and out of the play. It's kind of like cat and mouse, but he's the mouse. He keeps going everywhere, but he's fast and whatnot. Whereas Nichushkin, they call him Nuke for a reason, right? They call him
Train.
Choo Choo Train for a reason, right? The man is
Nothing
just
graceful
an
about it.
absolute bull, right? Like he's a big body. He's not very fast, but he can muscle you off a puck any day of the week, and he's got a really good finishing touch on the backhand. So it's great.
Yeah.
And then Johansson, just based off the highlights I've seen, he kind of is almost like a well-married pairing of both of those styles of play.
Yep.
He's quick enough to hold his own against someone like a McDavid or someone like an Austin Matthews if they're ever on some type of a charge. But he also is able to body somebody without asking the second question.
Right. He's a big boy. But
and with what you said,
doesn't have an awful shooting percentage. So being with those two guys, like he's not scared to shoot the puck.
Exactly, right. And so with his playmaking ability, I think you've set up probably one of the best forechecking lines in the NHL.
Yeah, two phenomenal finishers, and that's that's what we need, a lot more finishing.
That's exactly right, because that was one thing that drove me up a freaking wall last year. Was we had all these open shots,
felt like
and we missed.
Yeah.
Okay. Third line.
Yeah, this is where it gets messy, I think. So what you got?
Okay, so for me, I have Miles Wood on the left wing. I have Ross Colton for the center, and I have Logan O'Connor on the right wing.
All right, so we are just totally in sync. Apparently,
all right. So we're all in agreement. I like this one because Miles Wood, Miles Wood is comparable to, in my opinion, JT Compher. I think both him and, well, I should say comparable to JT Compher in the sense that he has his style of play. Because I know a lot of the people are saying he's the replacement for Alex Newhook, which he is. But I think in the Avalanche way of changing a player and something like that, he'll be able to be a 30, maybe even 40-point go-getter for the season, right? And we have him for 6 freaking years. So if he pops off year 1, we're great, Yeah. So I think with them and Logan O'Connor being the second guy in that line, he has the ability to be on the second line. Like if the duty calls, he can fulfill that role. But I think having him on that third line, where he has that ghost of Nathan McKinnon vibe to him, where he's outrageously fast,
he can skate like the wind. I think he's registered as one of the fastest skaters in
there. He probably is, and I totally would agree with that.
He's big.
Statistic.
He's not little. It's not.
And he will throw gloves with anyone that comes his way. He is not afraid to tangle it up with some people.
With him and LOC, that line is going to be, they are just a couple of menaces in front of the net. They're going to be insufferable.
Yeah, and Logan O'Connor's breakaway is very, very nice, especially on the penalty kill. He is like the guy I need on the penalty kill.
He's probably got more shorthanded goals than
probably
5 goals. He's such a bizarre guy, and that's what I was curious. Because LOC has been on our first penalty kill unit forever. You almost got to wonder if, I don't know if Miles played penalty kill or if he breaks into that at all. It's really helpful that he came from the Devils, who have a style that mimics ours quite a bit. And he came from playing a decent amount of minutes. They really did play all 4 lines pretty well, but he really doesn't have a ton of adjustments. He just needs to keep his head on, because Bednar does not like stupid penalties. So if he can control himself and not get penalties, he's got, he could really, really make a name for himself. And then he could be one of the best value contracts in 3 years that the NHL could possibly, it could be insane. And that's what's insane is when you consider his scoring is not that low. He's got a decent scoring. Imagine if he was actually out of the box playing the minutes he was supposed to be playing and not sitting in the box as much as he did. So I think that him and LOC are like the perfect, like Calvin and Hobbes, like big and little. I'm looking forward to seeing Miles Wood in front of the net, because it sounds like he is just everything that I hate about a guy in front of me. Actually, It sounds like he's got that game honed in, but he's a productive person. And did you watch the interview with him? He just sounds like a super cool dude, and he's excited
He's
about
excited
Colorado.
to be here. Yep.
Yes, he's an outdoorsman. He said that he heard a couple years ago that Sakic was interested in him, and it was like the biggest ego boost he ever got. So he's jazzed. Like he
I
feels
bet.
like he wants to be here, and that's so important. So, and we gave him a 6-year deal. So you can't ask for more faith being handed out.
Yeah.
Nope.
And with that cap and stuff going up, that deal should his statistics and points production continue to rise and stuff like that, start at a great number, whatever, that is also going to be one of the deals to look at as a steal at $2.5 million.
Yeah, he had full hip reconstruction, so it's kind of scary, to see how that ages, and that's probably why he wanted term, was so that if it did die out. But that's probably why we got him so cheap. So if that holds up, that hip, it'll be looking like the McKinnon deal all over again, which McKinnon's is going to be the McKinnon deal all over again. It's going to be a value contract very soon.
Okay, the last line, and I am almost willing to bet we have one that's the same, but I don't know about the other two, so I'm interested. Okay,
off the wall.
Okay, I'll give you mine first.
Okay,
and then save your applause till the end. Alrighty, so left wing, and remember, this is as it stands, right, on July 10th, 2023, as the squad that we currently have. Left wing, I have Andrew Cogliano. Center, I have Ben Myers. And right wing, I have Oscar Olausson.
Okay. Yep, so, I got one different from you. And this one I wasn't married to, so sell me on.
So Cogliano, obviously the veteran presence with the young kids, right? That's kind of the big thing. And the guy is Iron Man. He broke his neck and he's still coming back, okay? Like, let's let that sink in for a second, okay? So obviously he is passionate about the game of hockey. He steals his teammates' goals, which is nice for his statistic line, doesn't it? But anyway, Ben Myers, he just needs to figure out to get over that hump where he can get to being a 10+ goal scorer, because his ceiling is still really, really high because his expectations are not as high as what Newhook's were, right? Now, with Oscar Olausson, this is to begin the season, mind you. I want to see what he can do in the NHL, because for a lot of players you see, for example, take Marchessault, he won the Conn Smythe just this last Stanley Cup, right? Not even a month ago, or maybe a month ago now. But he wasn't drafted, right? He had to fight his way up, and all he needed was a chance. And that's what I want to give Oscar Olausson on the Avalanche squad here, is a chance to prove himself. It might be 10 or 15 games or something like that, but if he is able to hold his own, I say we continue to roll with that type of talent. Young, it's AHL caliber, he's still learning, but if he is able to hold his own, not make mistakes, I think we give him the nod. Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to rotating through all of them. I had Olofsson, but it wasn't like a passionate choice. Honestly, I would love to see them roll through and give all of our prospects some time. And hopefully we'll be good enough and strong enough and deep enough that we can take those little calculated risks in bringing them up, because we've got some guys. And I think even the same for defense. And I don't know if you've been listening to the development camp stuff at all, but this might make you just super excited. So we drafted McCarr's little brother, and the joke was that McCarr took a hometown deal because we did that. Well, it sounds like his little brother might also be an NHL player, and this isn't a joke, and it's not like a courtesy thing, that he's actually like really, really shaping up to possibly be a professional hockey player. And this was not
good
for shits and gigs. So that's my my next year. I'm holding on to that. I would love that. That would be
That'd
my
be super
joy
cool.
for this year. But I think he's playing for Boston. Oh, Taylor, right? But he plays for UMass right now, and I think he's only like 22, so he's got a couple years left there. But like he's a big boy too, and I'm just like really, really excited for that. But we've got a lot. Sorry, that was totally a one-off. But we've got people trying to see how old we picked up. What did we pick up? 2 college free agents last year? Because I think Malinsky, Poland. Malinsky's a defenseman, which I'd like to bring him in too at some point. He is older. I mean, he is like probably almost 25, wouldn't you suppose? If he's a senior in college,
I think he's 24.
Okay, but who is the other one?
And then there was Riley Tuft. There was Chris Wagner. I think was new. Who else? Paulin, Andre Pavel.
And then they've been talking a lot of Colby Ambrosio. I don't know. He's a forward. I don't know which wing he plays. But I just don't see why, if we're capable and healthy this year, we should give them real chances. Because I felt like last year we went through people just like one-offs and
out of necessity and injury.
Foodie, all of their chances were just so crappy, and I think they all deserve a good, clean chance with a real team. And I'd like to stop leaning on the Brad Hunt so much and really start getting these prospects some true minutes. And start seeing what we can get out of them, because they might pop off. You never know.
Yep, exactly. And kind of like with what I was just saying, if they get the chance and take the opportunity, you don't know what's going to happen. You could honestly have a legitimate all-star on that AHL squad, and we don't know because we haven't given them the chance.
Especially when all of our prospects are older. We don't have a bunch of itty-bitty babies that we just drafted 2 years ago.
They're all 24, 25. Yeah, they're all that age now.
Yeah.
So I would totally agree. If and this is assuming we're not making any more moves and we have
and that's
we don't trade for anyone, we don't get a new free agent, something like that, because all that could change.
There's not that means anything to have,
just saying Patrick Kane is still out there. I'm just throwing that out there.
I've heard rumblings that he might not sign till mid-season. Like,
it's totally possible.
Going to be so.
Yep. But I mean,
are you on the Tays Kane train? Do you?
I want Bergeron. That's kind of my go-to. Is I'm like,
he's so wrong. I would. Sam's Yard, I'd trade him 10 times to get Bergeron. I love that man.
So, anyways, but yeah, there's a lot of things. We still have a long off season to go. So, but as it stands right now, those are our lines that we would put together.
I think that everybody's kind of sitting in the general consensus, minus a few tradable pieces, but you can't decide on them until we figure out what we're doing. So.
That's exactly
we have a decent bit of money left.
We do. Yep. So maybe that is something to keep in mind if because I don't, Nylander, which we talked about way early in the trade question,
and term.
That seems like it's a pipe dream now. Same with
nobody can though. There's no one left in the NHL that can pay that guy that much money.
I don't think so. Maybe the Coyotes. So
maybe we're save it for a deadline and really go hard.
Maybe that's it.
Because there will be new names there. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Let's jump into our last segment, and we'll do this kind of quick just because there's not a ton of these, but the Hockey 101. Today's lesson is going to be on major penalties. So a few weeks back, we talked about minor penalties, and they get you 2 minutes into the penalty box where your team will be shorthanded for those 2 minutes. These ones are major penalties. So there's a difference in major penalty and misconduct, right? They kind of do go hand in hand. However, not every single one of them means game ejection, right?
A major isn't always a misconduct.
Yes. So in a misconduct, let's clarify this. A misconduct penalty forces a player to sit in the penalty box for 10 minutes unless it's those match penalty misconducts where they're kicked out of the game, right? So a major penalty, typically that's a 5-minute penalty, right, for a good chunk of these. Some of them can be enforced as being game misconducts, like we said. but most of which it'll just be 5 minutes. Sometimes you'll see them if it's just kind of like less than 5 minutes to go in that period, they'll just kind of go down the tunnel and be done with it. So the list that I have, at least up here, that for major penalties is butt ending, checking from behind, fighting, instigating, holding or grabbing a face mask, pushing off an opponent with your skate, leaving the bench during an altercation, and spearing. So of those, I think I've never seen butt ending, pushing off an opponent with the skate, and grabbing the face mask. I don't think I've ever seen any of those three actually happen.
I don't think I've seen face mask. I'd imagine if you go watch some of those like Red Wings Colorado playoffs, we can probably find them. Claude Lemieux demonstrate all of them for us.
Yeah.
The thing is, major penalties don't happen very often, but when they do, they're a big deal. So that's why we talk about them as much. And that's where you'll hear the words like hazard. It's taking things that might be minor penalties, but they become a major injury risk. It's a huge hazard for large injury, life-ending or life threatening injury.
And I will add a note here that any minor penalty that is assessed and determined to have malicious intent, like with what you said,
if you step it up,
they can step it up to a major penalty. Now, with a minor penalty, let's say you're shorthanded, Brit commits the most heinous minor penalty, tripping, known to man. And she's in the box for 2 minutes, right? So our team's down and the other team scores. Well, that means, let's say they scored with a minute into that penalty, right? Yeah. So the minor penalty is then washed away.
They consider your
we can go back to 5-on-5 play because they scored within that 2 minute. A major penalty, on the other hand, means that other team that has the full strength can score as many times as they can, and you still have to sit for those 5 minutes. There is no goal and everything's back to 5-on-5. You have to stay in there for 5 minutes. No ifs, ands, or buts.
And a lot of that comes down to needing, when you look at a lot of those penalties, those are penalties that happen in very extreme, heated, angry moments. And part of that reason is you need 5 full minutes to sit down and chill out. And that's why they don't want you coming back out right away, because generally there's multiple penalties given out in those times and everyone needs to sit and chill. So part of it is that you deserve to pay that time and your team deserves to suffer. But a lot of it is it's usually a need to chill everyone out because things are escalating to a dangerous level.
Yep, exactly. And going off of that, the first one we'll talk about super quick is the checking penalty. So we talked about there's a minor, so there's regular checking with a guy that you're kind of going toe to toe with. There's a minor checking penalty that'll get you 2 minutes for just checking, fully extending, cross checking a guy, knocking him down when he's not aware. Right. Then there's the major checking penalty, which it's the same thing, but this one was with the intent to injure. Let's say someone ran into Brit and I got pissed, right? So I just go deliberately just bash him, just check him as hard as I can, wherever place. But I deliberately checked him with the intent to injure him effectively. That'll get me 5 minutes into the box.
Often where you're utilizing things to injure as opposed to
exactly.
That's where you get into cross-checking, using your stick to injure, charging, using the speed to injure, boarding, using the boards to injure with that space between you and the boards. And then elbowing is that can be a big major. And that seems to be a recurring one that we can't quite get on board with how the refs think that should be penalized, unless you're Kadri. In that case, penalize them hard.
Exactly. Okay, next penalty. And this one's kind of a duo one. So there's fighting and there's instigating. They are kind of hand in hand type of thing. A lot of times you'll see one guy get a penalty for fighting, but the other guy get fighting and an instigating penalty. So instigation, let's talk about that first, because fighting should be kind of self-explanatory. You drop the gloves, you're going at it, right? It's fighting. Instigating is where the person who begins or encourages the action of fighting naturally, right? This can mean a few different things for instigating. It means like you traveled a certain distance to get to the other player. So let's say you're clear across the ice, you got checked and the ref didn't see it, so you're mad. So you'd already had you have decided you're going to fight that guy, you drop all your equipment and you beeline it 200 feet to the guy. That's instant, right? Because you want to fight with him. If you are the first to take off gloves where the other player did not want to fight, that's an instigating penalty. Yep. If you are throwing a punch where a fight was not, I guess, how would you say, agreed upon, so to say? If both teams were or both players were ready to fight, but you're still just gloves dropped and throwing punches, that'll get you instigating. This one was interesting that I've never seen before. Having a threatening attitude or posture. I don't really believe that one for some reason, because everyone has a threatening posture when they're ready to fight. Like I don't understand that one.
So like a lot of their existence, essentially,
exactly
threatens me personally.
It's like this one: verbal threats or taunting. That's chirping. That's not instigating.
Yeah, and I think at this point they probably utilize those for crossing lines and chirping like into racist, homophobic.
That might be it.
Because otherwise, I don't know if you've ever heard any accidental hot mics, but their average conversation
I've heard plenty.
is definitely considered inappropriate.
The F-bomb is a normal word when on the ice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I would imagine those are the line crossers, which is always interesting because that's subjective. So it depends if the ref is a racist and what they consider racist, or homophobic, or where is their line.
That could be it. And then the other one here that says retaliating or going back to a prior incident. So let's say you've both fought already. Usually they're like, okay, you've had your fun. Great. If the guy goes back again to go fight, whether they agreed upon it a second time or not, one of the guys wanted to head back and fight, they'll give him an instigating penalty there.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff on.
Second guy always gets called.
Yep.
Retaliating them.
Okay, so we'll skip over the butt ending. I haven't seen that happen too much. Grabbing the face mask, I haven't seen that too much. And then the pushing off with the skate, that's dangerous. You should not play hockey if that's what you're doing.
Any of your equipment maliciously essentially will find some way to be called a major penalty, because when you think about it, a lot of our equipment is pretty dangerous. If you spear someone, so you stab someone with a stick, spearing, butt ending, I mean, I'm trying to think if there was one instance of somebody butt ending somebody right in the bottom of the jaw, and I can't think for the life of me who it was. But any malicious movement with your skates is going to result. They're going to find some way to call that. There's just way too much dangerous crap out there that you're doing on a slippery floor.
You are dealing with some very dangerous equipment.
Yes, weaponizing it is an issue. And a lot of it, there's vague lines of intent. A guy falls down, the puck is between his legs, and you're just trying to get it out of there with your skate that's also a blade next to his abdomen that's exposed. So there's some iffy stuff in there, but most of it is pretty blatant. So
Yep, it's about the intent, and a lot of people can tell what intent is, and the referees are trained to see that type of stuff.
Yes, and if you're new to hockey, it seems like a violent sport, but it's a very the violence is calculated and it's contained in a manner that keeps people alive. Because when you think about it, people could die a lot out there if we were just out there boarding people and then kicking the puck away from their neck. Like, it's literally a knife on their feet. A two-sided knife. So it's very calculated, and I think it's a lot more controlled than people think. And these are the things that keep, and most of it comes down to none of your equipment can be a weapon. Simple enough.
That's exactly right. And then the last one we'll talk about, this is a bench major. So like we said, bench minors for like delay of game or something like that. But this one is a bench major, and that is for getting onto the ice when there is an altercation. If you are on the bench and a scrum breaks out because some dude ran into the goalie and nobody liked that, you have to stay on the bench. I don't care if, all 5 guys out there are throwing punches and there's 5 different fights going on. You have to stay in that bench.
If not, you need to make sure that the whole other team is in agreement that everybody's leaving the bench.
Exactly, right? So you have to stay on. Those, I haven't seen them for a while.
Years.
I think the brawl in 2000. What year was that with the Avs and Red Wings? I feel like that was one of the incidents where everyone just left.
Yeah, I think I was still living in Colorado when that happened. So
it's good etiquette to, if there's a fight, watch, tap sticks when it's done, but don't get on the ice. Otherwise, the ref will
to understand too. when guys do fight, it's generally something agreed on, and it is something where weight class is taken into account. For the most part, there is, and it might sound silly, but there is respect on the ice where different classes fight different classes. You don't have a tenured fighter out there fighting Connor McDavid, and if you do outgo
Zdeno Chara versus Alex DeBrincat.
Yes. It's very frowned upon to go outside. Fighters fight fighters. Sometimes all-stars will fight all-stars. You know, it's generally matched up pretty evenly, and it is an unspoken rule for the most part. And you're going to get if you go outside, either if you go up a class and get your butt kicked, or if you go down a class and you kick the wrong person's butt, you're going to look dumb. So there is method to the madness.
Exactly. Okay, so that concludes this lesson of Hockey 101 of major penalties. We hope that instructed you a little bit more in the game of ice hockey. Okay, so I believe that's going to conclude this episode. Brit, I don't know if you have anything else to add until next week. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you once again, everyone. We apologize again for the early technical difficulties that we were going through, but we got all the other pages. I turned off the internet on my phone, but it seems like we did okay after that. So thank you once again, everyone, for sticking with us throughout that entire thing. We really do appreciate it. If you like what you saw, again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Clusterpuck Podcast go live. You can follow us specifically at Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook and Clusterpuck Avs on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. We hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Again, be sure to send us your lines because we would really love to see more of that stuff. Yeah, especially you guys.
Here, tell us about the bottom lines. Who do you want to see given a chance? There's a lot of really conflicting opinions. So tell us if we're totally off and you think that somebody else needs to come up because there's a lot of options.
Yep, and even with goalies too. We know Annunen signed with the Avalanche again. So let us know your guys' opinions. We'd really love to see them have some participation. DM us on all those platforms that we listed off to you guys. Hope you guys again have a safe and enjoyable rest of the week. And as always, let's go.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.